What? It looks incredibly better here. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Are you kidding me? It looks amazing in here.
Anybody hear me?
כן, הרב, שומעים.
Good. Okay, Shalom Aleichem, everyone. We are, how to cover here? We'll start the Gemara in Lam Zayin Varav Ipoilahu, Ma'u Lismach. Ma'u Lismach, Bob. What's the halacha of, you have the kira attached that's on the ground, and it's earthenware, it's made out of earthenware, like pottery, and you want to take a pot and put it next to it, like touching the outside of it, without it being garfa katon. So the socha v'gaba asur, we said before that socha v'gaba is asur without garfa katon. I will listen to shapir dami, but perhaps putting it next to it's okay. Or dilma loishna. Maybe it doesn't matter. It's the same. It'll be the same thing. So we go through. We have rayas lakan lakan, which we'll get to some of the rayas afterwards. What's the ikr shaila of the Gemara? Ma'u lismachba. What is a shaila of Shia or a shaila of Chazara? A shaila, I can put it there before Shabbos and have Shia that it's just be there, stay there, or is the shaila is that maybe it's perhaps, but according to that only Shia but not Chazara. Chazara on Shabbos, it's still sof kosof. The fire is not gar for katum, so there's no. Of course, you can't do that. Or the shaila to begin with is all about Chazara and Kosher Shia. So Tosas over here learns that it's really totally on how you learn shot in the Mishnah. Like we're clearing, we're raising the shaila in the Gemara based on how you learn in the Mishnah. So it says it depends. Ainak Grufa, Tosas says we're talking about this Ainak Grufa. That's the whole shaila. So Tosas says Imas Nisan Lishos Nan Kiboy Lishos Ulahakser. If the Mishnah is Lishos Nan, then it's going to be a shaila of both. The Hakser Tanan. So it says if the Mishnah is Lachser Tanan, but she is mutter even inside it or on top of it without Garfa Katum, so then the shaila will be Chazara, and it'll be a shaila of Shehia where it's not Mavushal Kamacha Ben Dersai. So depending on how you learn shot in the Mishnah, that will be the Hezber and the shot and the shaila of the Gemara here of Ma'u Lismach. I just have to say that in Tosas is saying that there's a shaila of Chazara or Shia where it's not Levushah Macham Under Soy. So we have to be talking about, obviously we're talking about Erev Shabbos, not on Shabbos itself. Like so, the shaila is going to be Shia Enavusha Kamakim Under Soy when it's Erev Shabbos. Obviously, you're not going to be putting it. There's no side you can put Enavusha Kamakim Under Soy to be Somachet on Shabbos because Sof Kol Sof you're going to be Vashal it. It's not Makim Under Soy. It's Bishul Gomor. So we're talking about either Shia on Erev Shabbos when it's not Mavusha Makim Under Soy or Chazara, which it's hard to say according to Tosfos if it means the Shia and if the Shia and the Chazor have to all be at the same time. If the Shaila Gemara Ma'u Lismach, are we splitting the times also? That the Shia will be Erev Shabbos and Chazor will be on Shabbos, or Tosfos might be learning that the Chazor will be Dumia to the Shia. The Shia has to be Erev Shabbos because we're talking about not Machmer Nesoi, so the Chazor will be the same time, which would fit with Tosfos and on the Mishnah that held that the Shaila of Chazor is even on Erev Shabbos. If it's Tosfos said B'Shem the Ri in the bottom Tosfos and the Lam Vavon and Beis Omer Ri Metzina L'Meimar to Erev Shabbos Nami Asor LaHachzer. I feel the Roseach Mishashi Im Haya Kar Lo Yachol Harsiach Mivod Yom. Maybe the Isra Chazara is not only on Shabbos, maybe it's even on Erev Shabbos. If you're doing Chazara at a time And even if it's Roseach now, if it would still be cold, you wouldn't be able to heat up before Shabbos. So maybe they asked Chazar on Erev Shabbos as well. So perhaps Tosfos is referring to that he's putting it. It's not so clear. But the point is, though, that the main point is that Tosfos learns that the Shiloh of the Gemara of Ma'olismach could be either Shia or Chazar, depending how you learn Pshat in the Mishnah. It's interesting that there's a major machlokas in Rishonim about this, major Shalom Rishonim, that the Balamor, we'll see after, at some point we see the Balamor and Muskanas Sugya. It's hard to see it now before we see all the final Gemaras, because he really just makif the whole first half of the parak. But Mitoch Dvarov, there's a lot of small nakudas of shot in the Gemaras as we go along. So the Balamor says that it's pashut to him that the Shiloh of the Gemara is only Lagabe Chazara. He doesn't hold this even a Shiloh at all, Lagabe Shia. So to him it's pashut. I guess the hefsek between you're putting it, I guess it's not artificial, it's not normal to cook something outside of the oven, put it on the ground next to it. It's not a normal thing. So I guess he holds that makes it pashut that Shahiyah is going to be mutter. So Shiloh of the Gemara is only by Chazara. But the Ramban over there in Mlachamas says that he sort of alludes to Tosfos by saying, why are you putting yourself into this machlokas of Shia of Lishos or Laksir Tanan to make a decision like that it's only Legabe Chazor, not Legabe Shia? Because the Ramban holds that if you hold Lishos Tanan, that also Legabe Shia you need for it to be Garfa Katum, then Huadin, it will be a Shiloh Legabe Bismuch, it would be the same Shiloh. So the Ramban's not agreeing to the Balamor's presumption that it's Pashat that Shia is obviously going to be okay. Obviously okay if you because it's not a normal derech bishul. So the Rush also in the name of Rabbeinu Yonah is also Docha the Balamor for the following reason. He says interesting techiyah. He says that it can't be that the Shiloh of the Gemara is Gabi Chazara. This will actually be a kasha and Tosfos as well. This Rabbeinu Yonah. The Tosfos also has a possibility if you hold Laksir Tanan that the Shiloh of the Gemara is Gabi Chazara. He says the following. He says that the Gemara says by us, Ma will this mukba Tocha b'Gaba Aser. I will this mukba Shapidami or Dimaloshna. Now, if you're talking about, so we're saying that Tocha b'Gaba, that's a problem. But maybe this is okay. Now, Tocha b'Gaba, Rav says in the previous Gemara that there is never heter chazora tocha. B'tocha. There's never a shaila of tocha. That's for sure always also b'chazora. So the fact that we even discuss tocha over here, Rabbeinu Yonah says that shows that we're not talking about chazora. We're talking about shia because there's never a tzad to discuss tocha when you're talking about chazora, according to Rav. So it must be that the whole shaila of the Gemara is only legabe shia, not legabe chazora. But you can be docha that though, which we said last week that Tosfos himself is able to say what he says because Tosfos in the previous Tosfos said that Rav is not going like any shita. And so if the Gemara now is clearing a shiloh legabe the Mishnah, and how do we hold like by Haxer Tanan, Lishos Tanan would hold like Chananya or not? So you can't ask me a kasha from Rav. Rav is his own shita. Rav is a different shita than Chananya, according to Tosfos. So you can't bring a raya against what we're saying now from Rav from the Gemara before. So I'm just saying that the Tosfos and the Balamor are not so difficult to say that because it's not. It doesn't bother us that Rav said differently. Anyway, so that's a general shiloh here. The Gabe, what is the shiloh of the Gemara about this month? So we go into now. The way Rashi
can I say the Rush one more time?
The Rush says b'shem the Rabbeinu Yonah. He comes to be docha the Balamor because it says the Gemara is mentioning. It says socha v'agabe aser be'inei grufa. Rav said that it's aser l'socha even if it is gar for katan. Socha is always aser even by gar for katan to do chazara. And the Gemara here is mashma that it's only usher because it's not gar for katan. If it would be mutter. So it can't be talking about chazara. It must be only shia. That's his raya. And I'm just answering that true, that might be true according to Rav. That's not a raya to Chananya, where the Gemara is clearing over here. So Mela, Tosus and the Balmor can still say what they say. Right. Now, there's a very, very chashuv Rashi here. Very sodistic Rashi that there's a lot of discussion around on this. Well, actually, there's two Rashis that are chashuv, but we'll start with this. We'll start with the second one first, and go back to the first one. Rashi says, when the Gemara says al gaba, the socha is aser when it's not garba katzon. What is al gaba? What does that mean on top of it? What is al gaba? So Rashi says, ovi sfasa, the thickness. You put it on the thickness of you have this like thick earthenware oven, so you have like the walls going around it. So you either put the pot on that thickness, or Rashi says, o kisui shalchalala, or a covering over. Basically, imagine like a square where you have like a square thing with an empty middle, and you have the fire on the bottom, and you have the pot on top. So either you lay the pot on the thick wall, or Rashi says you cover this open area with a kisui al halala, like a piece of metal on top of it, and you put the pot on that. So Be'etzim, Rashi is talking about a blech. He's talking about what we call blech, a piece of metal going over the fire. And Rashi is calling that al gaba, which al gaba is also when it's bishlema by tocha, al gaba, not only tocha, but also al gaba, which according to Rashi includes putting it on a piece of metal on top. And that's still called al gaba with it's aser when it's not gar for katum. So the Chazon Ish is medayek from here. You see that a blech doesn't work over a fire. We see from this Rashi that it doesn't work. And the Tur, so if it was just Rashi, okay, it's one thing, but he quotes that the Tur quotes Lashon Rashi. Test. Yeah, it's in Chazon Ish, it's in Lamed Zion. Which tests. It's medayek this in Rashi. And he brings this as a kasha on Mishnah Berurah. Mishnah Berurah brings the Shem Poskim that a blech, as we know, does work. Find it here. Yeah, he brings that. He starts with the Mishnah Berurah and us test in the beginning that the Mishnah Berurah is in the Magen Avraham. Basically, it comes like this: the Shulchan Aruch and Sif Gimel, in Rishon Gimel Sif Gimel and our Siman. So he says that if you want to put a pot on top of the fire, then you have to put it on top of an empty pot, because putting it on top of an empty pot, or even a kosher can of food, if it has food in it, doesn't even an empty pot. Whether it's empty or has food, it's both okay. It's both not there. Kishal Bakach. Says the Magen Avraham, which in Mishnah Berurah quotes it, is medame that halacha, putting a pot, also putting a piece of metal across, like we call blech, with a metal covering. So that's all b'shem the Maharil. So it goes back to Rishonim. You need another hefsek. So the Chazon Ish tainas that the Tur says al gaba mikri al sfasa o al kisui shal chalala. The Tur, which says just like Lashon Rashi, which he mentions that Tur got this from Rashi, kisui shal chalala, the covering over its empty spot. You can put the pot on that. That's called al gaba, and al gaba, the Gemara says over here, is aser when it is not gar for katan. So why do you call the kisui al gaba gar for katan? We see that it's not. We see that maybe the Chazon Ish doesn't say why. But perhaps the reason is because when the shot in gar for katan has been either again, Chazanish doesn't always explain what he says, but in this case, I think probably Pashim Shot and what he's saying is that the din gar for katan is you sweep away the coals or you put a kisui on the coals. You actually do a maisa to the makar of the eish. So you put it on the coals itself. Here, it's very far removed from it. You put a piece of metal, you didn't do anything to the coals. So maybe perhaps that's the reason the Chazanish is learning Pshat and Rashi, that since you didn't do anything to the coals, it's still called ein a gar for katan, even though you have a covering there. That's not called a covering on the fire. It's just a way to cook. So he says the Mishnah and Vir Halacha goes back and forth whether from Lashon and Rambam, if it's not like this, and because that is Samachan, he says that there's no raya from the Rambam, and he's very stark Cholak on the Mishnah Berurah, and it says he has a raya from this that it can't be done. And then later on in Sivkat and Yadal, the Chazanish, he goes through a sort of like how you're supposed to actually do Shia Lamaisa. How do you do? It says Shia no Bar Tzenu Akdosha. The Shia that's done in Eretz Yisrael should psilas aish lamata tachas pitput the sofsin akdera lamayla pitput. You put the fire below, and then you have like a little stand where you put the pot on the stand over the fire. The aish tachas shuli akdera, and the fire is under the shuli akdera, under the walls of the kedera. Dino kakira she'ena grufa. That's called ena grufa, which is okay as long as it's makar ben soy. That we pass like charanya. So you could put it there, makar ben soy. Even if you put a blech, a metal pach, a metal piece, like we know, in the senior akdera tocha pach, or if it has lips to it, it sounds like the pot, like it has lips around it. You put the pot in that. Even if you do that, it's not like Sif Gimel in Shulchan Aruch that it's like putting an empty pot on the fire and then you're putting that to be mafsik between the fire and the pot you want to cook with, you want to put there to keep warm. This is only like just putting the normal cover on the fire and you miming the kedera on the kisui. Al Gaba, that's the din of Al Gaba that our Gemara says usher when it's gar for katum. When it's not gar for katum, like he said before in Sivkat and Test, there's Medak from Rasi in the tour, not that way. And therefore he says, if you do this, even if you have a blech over it, like we do, ein machzir and b'Shabbos, a few oda biyoda with daitalax. Even if you have all the other tanayim, which we'll learn later about Chazara, that you need daitalaxir and oda biyoda, hands still on it, everything doesn't help. It's considered a fire that's not covered. It's considered not gar for katum. You can't do Chazara. That's the shak of the Chazanish. The low Mishnah Berurah, the Mishnah Berurah quotes the Maril, Magen Avram, that it is okay. So, Lachora, what do we do? We hold not that way. If we're doing the blech, and so what do we do with this tour in this Rashi? That says beferish that kisui al chalala is not called gar for katum. That's called in a gar for katum, and it's called al gaba in a gar for katum, which the Gemara says clearly is usher to chazara when it's not gar for katum. What do we do with that? So many years ago, I tined that this Chazanish, the Duke from Rashi in the tour, is not a raya at all. He was a linear taiti. Lulidim Stefina from the Chazanish, I would say that it's not a raya at all, because in those days, that was the normal way to cook. To put that metal thing over, there was two ways you would either you have different kinds of pots, and you have this kira that has open space in it. That the normal way to cook over that fire would be to put its covering. It could be it was even attached. It could be it was even like it had hinges. I can imagine those kind of kiras would have hinges that sometimes you want to cook on the lip of it, so you keep the thing open. You want to have more heat, and you want to have or you want to have the full heat. You want to have less heat. You want more heat. You want it right over the fire, so you close that cover, and you would you put the pot over it so it's directly over the fire, just it has the metal piece in between. So that would be the normal way to cook. back in those days, then and a chanami, then there's no hecker at all that you don't intend to stir the coals. So if it's not garfakatim, then that's mamish putting it al gaba of in a garfakatim, and there's still a shash shemi hata begachalim because you did nothing to the coals. You just put it over that metal. And a chanami, that was in those days. But today, what normal person cooks in their right mind in a normal day by putting a piece of metal over the gas stove or the electric stove? It's completely shalokadarka. So I would venture to say that excuse me, that it's totally different, and it's not a raya at all from that Rashi and that tour to Bismanenu. And so that'll be the shot in the Mishnah Brura. Maybe already by the time of the Mishnah Brura, it already was not the derech to cook that way. Probably had a little more advanced than their stoves were more advanced in the time of the tour and Rashi. So by that time, it already was not the derech to cook on a metal thing like that. And when you put it on there shaloka darkoi, so then that's a mamash a heker that you don't plan to stir the coals. Now, even though there is a, even though you can still taina somewhat that there's a, you're not actually doing anything to the gufa ish like you would by garfakaton over here, but here there isn't anything to do to the gufa ish. There's no way to put ashes on the gas fire, right? You know, we can't do anything to the ish itself.
Oh, but didn't we say Rav Color held you had to put like do roof on the knobs?
Yeah, that was a Machodas or Moshe and Rav Cutler. If Iker is covering the knobs, the Iker is covering the fire.
It wasn't that for the same reason. Isn't that for the shemichata?
It's Shem Yachata, yeah. But they're assuming that putting the metal thing does work. The shala is over what? How far do you have to go? Azinish holds us nothing. It's mamish considered al gaba, and in the Garfa Kata, because you didn't do anything to the Gufa H. So I discussed this many years ago with Rabban Schechter. That's all. It's hard to say. That's all. So recent, and he was masking to this. He had the same shot in Rashi himself. That it's not a ride from Chazanish has no ride from this Rashi. And then I saw afterwards that Ramosha, that's all in the Tshuva. It's in Orchaim Chelik Aleph Siman Tzadi Gimel that Baruch Shem Mechaben L'Dvorov. He speaks it out by Richos. I'll tell you a little bit of his discussion there. He starts off saying, also like we said last week, to explain Shitas Rashi, the Rashi says that you have to be Mamayat Chomoy. You have to Mayat the Chom. The kisui needs to be a minimizing of the heat from the fire, which because of that he goes through a whole discussion whether a blech that doesn't do anything to the fire doesn't minimize the fire in any way. He takes it a step further, minimizes the fire in a way that's going to keep on getting lower and lower, and that's not shocked by a gas or electric stove. So he explains that what Rashi really means. This we said as well to answer Tosas Kashas on Rashi, that the Pshat and Katum is that it's not the minimizing the heat itself, it's that through doing some minimizing the heat, that's a Gilui Das that you don't plan to be Machata B'Gachalin. So Rashi, like the Ran also that says Heker, but the Heker also brings to a Gilui Das. Everyone's working really, Rova the Shem seems to be working mitzad Gilui Das. Shaz, what brings about Gilui Das? So Rashi that learns that it's Hatmana, and Hatmana is also by Deborah Mosef Hevel. So Rashi has to show a Gilui Das through some kind of minimizing the heat that's coming. And that's where Moshe discusses that you really haven't minimized the heat or not. And he says, since the Iker Davar is, according to Rashi, the Gilui Das, which shows you're not going to be Mechata B'Kachalin, which we said as well to answer Tosas Kashas that, or this is hot, this is hotter than salt that's called Moshe Hevel. No, it's not how hot it is. It's a question that you minimize the heat somewhat, and that shows your das is not to be Mechata B'Kachalin. So that answers all Tosas Kashas. So based on that, he goes on to say that maybe the reason that Rashi was machmer a little different than we're saying, not exactly the same, but Cain, what we're saying. He says maybe the reason Rashi said by Kisui Pach Al Gabav is l'shitaso that you need to do some kind of miyut klum. You have to minimize the heat some way, and that's why he was machmer by that kisui pach. And Mashenkin the Shari Shannon, other Shannon holds mutter because they hold the ikar as a hecker. If that's a pshat, then it's going to be difficult because the Tur quotes Rashi, and that the kisui pach doesn't work, and the Tur learns like the other Shannon that it's not mitzad hatmana. So then why would the Tur be machmer? Like, because how could the Tur quote Rashi if Rashi is built on minimizing the heat, and that's what since it doesn't minimize it, so how can the Tur quote it? The Tur doesn't learn that lumdus. He learns like the Ran, it's mitzad heker, the Gilui das mitzad heker. So the answer is that really the bottom line is whether it's darko b'kach or not. And so he says that back in those days, let's say if you back in Rashi's time, the coals stay the same. You have no way to adjust the coals really. If they're getting too hot, you have no way to cool them down. So it says sometimes you maybe put a kisui pach, you put a metal thing over it, wood or metal. The Torah talked about it, wood daf or a metal thing over it, and just separate somewhat from the heat to be able to cook a little slower if it's going to burn if it keeps cooking so fast. The kitzur, the bottom line is they would adjust the heat by different coverings and that was the normal way to cook, by those kind of adjusting. So my shanking today, we don't need to put metal plates to adjust the heat. We have a knob, we can adjust the heat up and down. So there's nobody but in the right mind would minimize the heat by putting a metal thing over it during the normal cooking in the week. So the fact that you put a metal thing there is completely and totally a not derech bishul, and it's a total hecker, total gili das that you don't want to be. You don't plan to be mechatab kolim or to do anything more over here, because you do something that's totally outside the derech bishul, the normal thing. So he wants to say that therefore even Rashi will agree with Manazeh that only Rashi only said what he said during a time where it was not a hecker by putting that there. It was not a gilui das necessarily because you might be cooking normally. Just want to slow down the process a little bit. Mashenkin today, Rashi would also agree that it's such a huge ma'isa, such a huge shinui from the way people cook that it would be a gilui das, even though if you're not actually minimizing the actual hefta of the H itself, but still you are somewhat minimizing. It does slightly minimize the amount of heat that reaches the pot. So on this point, Ramusha goes on to another tangent and says that perhaps there's room to say that there's no gzera at all bisman is it, because let's say a gas stove to stir the coals would be to turn it higher. So he says that's not really called stoking the same coals, but it's like adding. It would be like adding more. You're adding more fuel into the fire, more gas to the fire. That would be like adding more wood to the fire, which we don't find a gzera about that. There's no gzera in Chazal that we're worried that you might add more wood. And even though it's very minimal ma'isa to do it, maybe you could say, well, in the old days you have to go all the way back to the wood shed, get more wood. So it's in the meantime you're going to remember it's a whole ma'isa. We said no, it's mustaber that they had, since they cooked all the time, they had wood right there, and it was easy just to flip another piece of wood on the fire if you needed it. And even so, Chazal, we're not goes with that, because since you have to do an extra ma'isa outside of the H to do it, Chazal whatever goes there to add onto it. So perhaps the same thing will be apply over here. But the ma'isa goes away from that and says that we have to say there is a gzera, but that's where he goes into the discussion of whether it's enough to cover the H or cover the knobs. That's in the same tshuva he goes into. But Lamaisa, he's learning the same shot. But I wanted to get to for our sugya. So I want to get back to this point in Rashi that he's learning the same way that we were saying that Rashi only says what he says because it was a derech bishul l'kach, and that to use the kisui pach mashenkin today. Yeah.
The Chazon Ish who's machmir, is he machmir because of the possibility that this is not the pshat in Rashi, and Rashi really holds that if it's most of Havel is Asr, or he holds that this is just not a hecker?
he doesn't really go into that at all. He just says you see from Rashi that's still called al gaba. So you see from Rashi that it is considered, like Chazal considered it. It sounds like he's saying, like you have to know how the Chazon Ish thinks also. Like Chazon Ish tells us always that you need to, but Chazal Kaveya Bismanan, that's what we stick with today. Like he has a whole big piece about Trefus, and you know we have to go by Chazal, even though the doctor might think a different shot in Trefus today. He builds us all over his sefer. So Chazal considered al gaba to be on a kisui pach to be a derech bishul. It's still a derech bishul. We can't like suddenly change that. He doesn't go into all this, but just thinking the way he thinks, that's probably and Ramosha and the others are saying that in the Mishnah Berurah we see for the Maril are holding not that way. They're holding that we do look at what's derech bishul or not.
So he wouldn't, because the reason I was asking, because if the reason is that he's machmir in case Rashi, this is not the pshat in Rashi, and the pshat is really that it's most of Hevel. So if you had like, let's say a very, very thick board, like, a 10-inch board that you put over the fire that really did reduce the heat a lot, like he would still not be machmir that because Rashi says that if it's al gaba, it's asur.
Well, it's possible. Again, he doesn't speak it out, so we don't know. But it's possible he was learning that the minimum that the pshat in Rashi might be that the minimizing of the heat is not from extraneous thing. You have to minimize the heat from its source. Like it has to be dumya to garfa katum. To that Rashi says mamayat chaymai. So the fact that because if you say like you're saying, so then it's not the direct lashir, and you have to start, analyzing each thing. Is this thick enough? That thing, it's going to be like, or let's say you lifted the pot a little higher. You put nothing in between. You lift it a little higher, so you minimize the heat. Is that also okay? With nothing there at all. Yeah. Like you have to have a clear getter to this. You have to have one clear getter. So he's holding that this, for one reason or another, either because it's considered another way of putting it in the fire is to put it on there, according to Rashi, or because you didn't minimize the heat itself, whichever it is. He holds that the kisui pachas just doesn't work, according to Rashi and the Torah.
Unless you have a second pot on top, whatever. So like, what's the good of that hefter then?
So that already Chazal told us is what comes from Rishonim, but then Rishonim understood Chazal that to put another pot, that's for sure not derech bishul. Cook on one pot and dump another pot. But the kisui al gaba, since that was a derech in those days, is still a derech now. Chazal is told that didn't change. So that's probably the machlokas, whether you look at. They said what they said, and you can't change it, or we look at every door if that's considered derech bishul or not. If it's a shinui and it's big enough shinui, nobody would do that. Then that becomes low derech bishul, and that's then it's similar to the pot, because the shot in the pot, even if it's very, very hot, it's still okay by putting another pot there, because it's a shinui. It's obviously you're showing that you're trying to cook shaloka derech bishul, so that's the hecker. You're not going to come to Mechatav Gachalim. That's really the bottom line over here. You have to have some kind of a hecker, a shinui. You're Magali or Das, you're not going to Mechatav Gachalim. So is a Kisui Pach enough of a Gili Das? Chazon Ish says no, and Ramosha says yes.
So the Chazon Ish would hold like a Ravar that if you covered the, or not, it's a separate point, but what do you say that you could use a blech if you covered the?
Can't carry it. The elders can't do it.
Even if you take off the knob, there's no way to be Mechatav Gachalim. It's impossible.
Yeah,
because it's.
He's talking about even, I mean, he doesn't give that eitzah. He just says
no way.
You would still have the problem mechze, no?
Mixing kavashal.
Mechze, yeah. So even if you take off the knobs, but if you don't make a heker like something in between.
Mixing kavashal is only a problem of chazara, not of Shia. The Chazon Ish holds you can't even do. I mean, the Chazon Ish. Chazon Ish would say two things. If he's matir Shia even without anything at all, like as long as it's machaber and Rasoi. If it wouldn't be machaber and Rasoi, then you need a garfa katum. So then the Chazon Ish would hold that they wouldn't help for Shia either. You would not mix it in Vashal just because it's Shia that's usher, because Shem Yachatav V'Cholim. You're missing the minimum Gilui Das for that. Okay, so on this point, just on a small hara and a Rashi before that, The Rashi says on the Etzem Shaila, Rashi says something very strange. So Ma'u Lismoch explains the Shaila of the Gemara Malsa Kedera Itzel Dofen Akira Below Gufa, to put it next to the wall of the Kira when it's not Gufa. Shahakira Metaltelasi Moshivan Osal Gabi Karka, because the Kira is movable and you put it on the ground. So why did Rashi never explain this until now? Like Shakir, the Kira is a movable thing. Why does suddenly Rashi bring this up over here? Seems to be totally extraneous. Who cares if it's movable or not? Right now, it's on the ground. Right now, you want to put the pot, the shallows, put in the pot next to it, and on the hot walls. Is that okay or not? Why does Rashi have to say Kira Metatelesi? That it's movable. So I think the shot might be that there's a Magen Avram. It's in Rishon Gimel Sukhat Yud Zion. It says that it's in Rishon. I'm sorry, Rishon Zion, and I believe it's Rishon Zion. That in the Din of Hatmana, Magen Avram says the Yisod. It's Rishon Gimel, Rishon Zion. I'm not sure I remember. I'll look, but the Magen Avram says that a Yisod that that to have an Isra of Hatmana, you need something which is a bar Hatmana, something that it's also to do Hatmana and a Davar Mosif Hevel. Let's say you would have you would surround the pot by not cloths or anything like that. You're surrounded by everything, things that are mechuber lakarka. Since this mechuber lakarka is not a thing you can move around to cover a pot, it's not a movable thing. Then it wouldn't be an Isra Hatmana on that. So perhaps Rashi is saying over here, like saying the following, like this, that when you put a pot, Rashi holds this whole parak as a sniff of Hilchos Hatmana. That's what we said last couple of years. Rashi learns the whole parak. That's why it's telling Davar Mosef Hevel, like we spoke many times. So Rashi holds it like this, that Tochav al-Gaba, let's say, Tochav al-Gaba, which we're not mamish putting the pot down. When you put the pot mamish down on the coals, that Rashi says straight up, that's Atmana mamish. In fact, it's touching it. The chiddush of Shehiyah, the Isra of Shehiyah is going to be that even though you're not actually touching the coals, we're extending the Isra Atmana, since there's nothing that's really potentially mafsik between the pot and the fire. So since on that fire there's an Isra Atmana, if you put it on there, on those coals, Huadin, if there's nothing that's mafsik, we like extend the reach of those coals up to the pot, and we continue to aser the Shehiyah. If you didn't do it gar fakatim, then the Isra Shehiyah will be, even though it's not actually touching it, but as if you're doing Atmana on it, because we extend because as long as there's no hefsek between the pot and the coals, then it's in the jurisdiction of the coals. It's when the hashpah of the coals, and we're extending the Isra of Hatmana to that as well, as part of the Chiddush of Rashi. But now we have a different shaila that, let's say you're putting it and next to the wall now you do have a hefsek between the pot and the fire. So now, what's the tzad to say that it's a problem of Hatmana over here? Bishlema, it's already enough of a chiddush. Like Rashi's already the Rishonim B'Cholok in Rashi, but Rashi himself learns that the Isra Hatmana, we're extending that. It's a big chiddush in Rashi, but to this Shia, even if not even touching the coals, as long as there's no hefsek. Here we have mamash a hefsek. So then what's the shaila of the Gemara? What would be even the tzad to say that there should be an Isra over here of Shehiyah, if Shehiyah is Mitam Hatmana and it's completely removed from the coals? You have a wall between it, literally a wall between the coals and the pot. So Rashi has to be Mechadish if the shaila is, what about the wall itself? Maybe there's an Isra Hatmana on the wall. Well, that can't be. It's Mechuber Lakarka. And the Ramban Rebbe said that there's no Hatmana by something that's not a movable thing that you could surround a pot. Mele Rashi has to put in over here, Shakir Metatelesi. It is movable. So now, since the kira itself is movable, so now we have a shaila. Ma'u lismach, is there Isra of Shehiyah on it? Do we consider that just a hefsek to the coals and forget it? There's no Atmana, and there's no Isra problem over here. Or we say that since the walls are movable, so forget the coals. Now there's an Isra Atmana of a Deborah Mosif Hevel of the wall itself. The wall itself becomes the Deborah Mosif Hevel. That's the Deborah Atmana. Since the Kira is movable and it's shy to, it goes then back within the Parsha, the realm of Bar Hatmana. So that's what Rashi has to put in over here for the first time, that the Kira itself is Metafelisi, because we're not donning, at this point, we're not donning the coals, which we were until now, so we didn't care if the Kira itself's movable or not. It was not Megea. All wants the coals. Now we don't have the coals. Now there's a hefsek over here. So Rashi says we have to be donning not inside the coals, but inside the walls itself. So how could that be? Because it's movable, and therefore it goes into the realm of Atmana. That's why Rashi had those words. That's what I want to suggest. Okay. Any questions before we go on? Okay. So now the Gemara brings a raya. It says Tashma, Damar of Safra, Amar of Chia, Kitma v'nislapto. If you did kitum, and then so you minimize the flames with it a little bit, and then it flared back up again. Some air came in, some wind came in, whatever, and it re-flamed up the coals, even though it was kitma, even though you have the ashes over it. Because remember, the ashes don't have to be a thick layer of ashes. Rashi said even the thinnest layer of ashes is okay. So kitma is even very thin as long as it's something that's nicker and it's a gili das. So it's possible for it to get flamed up again. It's like, the door, someone opens the door, the little wind comes in and they flame back up. So we bring about that we say somchin la mekayman alea v'notan mina machzirin la. So we see that the Gemara wants to bring a raya that you need kitum also for smicha. But one thing we see though is you're allowed to do all these things. So what we see from this Gemara that kitma v'neslabta is still considered kitma. It's still considered gar for katan. So the fact that it flamed up again is still okay. So we have to say l'chora that the reason is because you did your ma'isa of either putting down a hecker according to the Ran, or putting down or minimizing the cold, the heat according to Rashi. Even though it was chazal and eslapta, you did your gilui das already. Since you're magala das, doesn't matter what happens afterwards. You still have a good gilui das that it's there, that it's okay. Later on, the Gemara says something strange according to this, and then we'll go on to, there's a few points over here. And then if you have coals that already have sort of lessened their heat, they're already gone, they're like on their way down, and you put a pot on it, then it's okay. The shaila is why you didn't do it. You didn't do a gili das. You didn't do a ma'isa gili das over there. Okay, they're not so hot, but they're still hot. They're still hotter than salt. If the whole point, the chiluk between, like we said until now, the whole point is the chiluk between, according to Rashi, minimizing the heat as opposed to the other things that are devarim and mostly from hevel. The theory you didn't do it in ma'isa. Here you did a ma'isa, and that's why it's always okay by the kitzim, even though it's very hot. Here you did no ma'isa. Why is that okay? It's lower than the usual hot coals, but so what? You didn't do a ma'isa, and that's another shaila. And then the Gemara goes on to say, Amar Yischak bar Nachmani, Amar Oshia, the bottom line of the Gemara, kitma v'huvara, if you covered it and then it flamed up again, here it has to be Mbushal Kol Tzorko to be okay. Which we didn't say that before about kitma v'nislapta. Didn't say there needs to be Mbushal Kol Tzorko. It's mashma that, and here the Gemara wants to bring a raya. We see that Mistamak v'yafalo is mutter, because that's going to be one of the big shilas throughout the next daf or so, is what's the din by something, even if it's Mbushal Kol Tzorko, if continued cooking makes it better, it's stomach v'yafalo, the shrinkage is good for it. So we say no. Here you can't bring a raya. You can't bring a raya that it's mutter because here shiny hachad the kitma, you covered it over here. So if you covered it, then what's the chiddush? Ma'ila meimra, hoover istrachle. No, we need the fact that it rekindled itself. Now the tema came into hoovera hadra lemilsa kamaisa. You might think that since it was hoovera, goes back to its original state as if there was no kitum at all. Kamash malan, that it's still considered katum. At least lagabe that it would help for a mistamak v'yafalo. but still it seems to be a steer a little bit. Before the Gemara's mashma be kitma v'neslabta. If it reflamed, then it's okay. It's just regular. It's considered like it's mamish cotton, so it should be mutter even if it's not in macham and drasai. Because if gorfa cotton is mutter, even if it's not mutter, it's only a little bit cooked. Not even macham and drasai is mutter. Here we're saying it's only mutter when it's called sarko. So there's two lashonos of Tosos over here to reconcile all this. The bottom line is, without going through the whole cheshbon over here in Tosos, is that according to the first lashon of Tosos, there's a shiloh over here that one lashon is kitma v'nislabta, means libui is like ignited. It's ignited. Huvara is a different lashon than nislabta. Is there a chiluk in them or not? Is it just two ways to say the same thing, or is there a difference? So the first lashon Tosos holds there's no difference. It's just two ways to say the same thing, and really the dinim are the same, and there's not enough community between them. The second lashon Tosos holds that without the cheshbonos. I'm sure you saw Tosos, but the difficulty in the shakla over here. What exactly is the back and forth? If it's pshita or ma'ila memra, what do you mean ma'ila memra? It's kind of a chiddush, and it's still okay. So the second lashon Tosos is medayek that chazon v'nislabta is a lesser flaming up than chazon v'huvra. Huvra connotes like a really strong flame. It really flared up. It didn't just pop up a little bit, but a mamish flamed up in a strong way. And that's why there's going to be a chiluk that according when it's chazon v'huvra, it's only going to be mutter when it's muvushal tzarko. The only thing that it helps to have that was cotton before is only that mistamach v'yafalo is still okay, even if you don't hold generally it's okay. Without the garfa cotton, it's cotton enough that mistamach v'yafalo is mutter, but less than that it wouldn't be, because since the mamish flamed up, it's partially mevatel the garfa cotton, which you have to say in that according to that it's partially mevatel your gili das, I guess, because it's like a new matzav now. Once it's covered with hura, it's mamish like a full matzav of flaming. It would need a new gilu das to some extent. Mashenken chazar v'nislabta, it's less of a flare up. So there we say that it still remains totally garfa katan. That's what you see. Now it's very interesting that this din of chazar v'huvra, of chazar v'nislabta, the Rif and the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch do not mention it at all. The Magen Avraham does mention it. Magen Avraham mentions it, and he holds like the first teretz of Tosos. He goes with the first teretz of Tosos, which the Achronim asks, the Pri Megadim asks that they have two teretz of Tosos. How can you be makel and say even chazar v'huvra is okay, even like it's mamish katan? According to the second teretz of Tosos, it's not good. You need uvush kol tzarko. Pri Megadim says it's a shalad or a banan. Over here, it's all derabanan. So safek derabanan lakula. There's two ways to learn over here, two teretz and tosos. So Magen Avraham is allowed to decide lakula to say even chazar v'huvra is okay, like it's totally garfa katan, like the first teretz and tosos, and like also the Mishnah Berurah brings this down, and like the Magen Avraham, and it brings in the Sharat Zion that you don't have to even come on to the Pri Megadim to say safek derabanan lakula, because it says that the Ramban, the Ran, and the Ritva all learn, like the first teretz of Tosos, that chazar v'huvra is totally garfa katan, even though it's chazar v'huvra. So L'chor going to say shayla's like this. Shayla halacha l'maisa. Let's say you have a blech on the fire, you cover it over, and then I don't know, one of the kids comes in during Shabbos. You take off the pot you want to return it, and you want to put it back on. And one of the kids comes in, and let's say your blech is made out of not metal, it's made out of earthenware, like a earthenware pottery things. So somebody comes in and is playing with one of their toys and knocks the blech off, and it smashes. So you didn't do it. Nobody did it on purpose. I don't know. The wind blew hard somehow, and somehow a bird came in. I don't know. An animal knocked it off. Your pet knocked it off or something. It smashed. So is that considered like chazar v'huvra? You did a kitum, and now chazar v'huvra, and now you're allowed to put it back onto it. because if it's considered like Garva Katan, you can do everything. Like that's the psak in the Magen Avraham. Or not. It's not right now. It's not covered. But also over there, in a way, it's not covered. Chazav Huvra, the chiddush was that it's mamish flames up, so it's like barely covered at all. Can you compare that or not? So Rishon Zalman, that's all in his Minchas Shlomo, his Chedushim on and the Chedushim on Shabbos came out, relatively recently. So they have his Kisayad and some of his Shirim and his Kisayad they put together. So he says that it should not help. Because even in Chazav Huvra, there's still a little bit of ashes there. There's still a reminder that you did once do a Maisa Gilui Das. According to Rashi or Maisa Heker, the Heker is also Gilui Das. The Kol Rishon, we had some kind of Gilui Das. There's still a Heker there. There's still Epis. There's still a little bit of ashes there to let you know that there was something. So Mela, it remains. That's what he wants to say. And therefore, in a case where you knock off a blech, there's absolutely nothing left at all, then that you can't say. So when I saw that, I had a kasha that seems to like run contrary to a lot of a yesod I work with a lot is that by Durabanans when the Rabbanan were chayiv you to do certain kerim, certain ma'aser to make a heker, so as long as you do your thing, then as long as you did it, even though it goes away somehow, it goes away, then still the ma'aser you did it. So the Rabbanan are not chayiv to do more. For example, let's say there's a halacha if you're eating alone with your wife while she's in nida, so you're supposed to put a heker between you on the table. In order because eating together by yourself privately, next to each other, they can cause chiba, and the chiba can come to other things. So the suda together and eating together by themselves, that's a special davar shel chiba, and you have to have a hexek between you, like a davar gavoa, something which is not usually on the table between you as a heker. Put it down there for that reason. So, but the halacha is, Pesach Tshuva says in over there that if let's say you put a heker between you, and then like one of your kids comes running into the room, and let's say what you put between you is some toy, put a toy between you, and then the kid runs in and says, "I want that toy," and grabs the toy and runs away. The halacha is you can keep on eating. You don't have to put something else there, because if the Maisa you did the Maisa to show their Megala Das that you're not going to have such chiba at this suda, if you put something in between, it shouldn't lead to anything. As long as you put it there, you did it, and it's good enough even if it goes away afterwards. And there are other examples, a little more far-reaching examples. Let's say we have the next Yom Tov coming is Hanukkah. So Machlokes in the Gemara, Kafsa Zakukla or in Zakukla. If it goes out before the half hour, they're supposed to the whole mitzvah is Persumei Nisa. You need a minimum of half hour Persumei Nisa. So let's say you light the candles, and then there's like a unexpected wind blows in and Ruach She'eino Mitzuya and blows it out before a half hour. So it's Machlokes in the Gemara. We pass in Kafsa in Zakukla. As long as you did the hadlaka, Maisa hadlaka in a way that there's enough to go a shear. That's a din d'Rabbanan. You did your din d'Rabbanan, so now it goes out. You're not mechuyev to light it again. I think the first dugma is even a better dugma to over here. Over here you did a Maisa Gilui Das. So even though it goes totally away, if it was completely away, like the kid taking away the toy between you, or you did your Gilui Das already. Why should you need that? That was my kasha on Rosh Hashanah. But then I saw Baruch Hashem that in Shmir Shabbos Kol Chasa, he actually.
And you just say that the heker by needs is that's only on that itself is only a harchaka. It's already much removed from the Raisos.
Right, but stuff goes up. They said you need to do it, so you did it. So it doesn't matter. Like the fact there's no zecher of that left anymore. You did what you did. You did your Megala Das. So why should here be different? So and then I found that in Shmir Shabbos Kol Chasa, it's in Perek Mem Vav Sif Dalet. I forget which hara it is. That maybe it's I'm sorry, it's Hara Samach Dalet. He says that there he says in the Ha'ara that even though there's Makam Lachalik between the heter of Shia, first he says Klal that the fact that we should wear Paskins that you could do this, so Lachora there should be Makam Lachalik between Shia and Chazara, but Etzem heter of Chazara. In the case of the Gemara Mamish, that the Magad Ram Paskins, Mishur Paskins, you could do Shia and Chazara. So Lachora there should be Makam to say only Shia be mutter, but not Chazara, because here the riff in the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch they left it out, and you didn't do a Maisa in the Gufa Eish. There's common reasons in Chalik, but then in the Tikkun Va'aras, which in the new edition they institute, you can't tell which he added later or whatever. So I keep the old edition so I can tell what he added Ksav Yad later on, because like that's the whole Geshmak to see what he's hold and what he changed his mind. So I can tell you over an amazing Maisa with that, but we'll see. I don't know if I have time. It's I had a Maisa with him with that after he passed away. But sounds strange, right? But very spooky Maisa. Anyway, so but in the Tikkun of Aras, he was choser from this. He thought it over again, and he said that even though they left out this din, the Maisa since the Magad Ram does paskin it, and Mishmur paskin that all the Achronim go with it, and they're not machal between Shia and Chazara. There should be mutter even by Chazara. And who a din he says over there that once they bring this din and there's no chiluk, then it shouldn't make a difference even if it fell off. Even if it fell off, it should still be mutter. So if he doesn't explain why, or he said already in this Kedushin, there's a reason to be machalik between over there and over here. He doesn't say why, but I think Baruch Hashem he's mechavin to it. I'm mechavin, or he wasn't mechavin to me, that's for sure. We're having to his softas. In the beginning, he was mahalik like that, but the kasha we asked on him, of course, that's what he goes with at the end. The Maisi is holding that it's mutter even if it does fall off. That's what he says. But in Igros Moshe, though, in Chelik Daled, Siman Ayin Daled, Os Lamed. So that whole Siman, by the way, is a very long Siman with lots of Osus. That really was taken from Rishim and Eider, that's all Sefer. And they put it into the last or Baruch. So there he writes, like Rishon Zalman held in the Chedushim. He says the Chilik that only by Garfukatim in the time of the Gemara that we have some ashes left, then only there it helps Chazar and Nislapta. But if the cover falls off, like our blech falls off, then he says that wouldn't help. So he goes like Rishon Zalman's Avamina and Rishon Zalman's Chazar. So it comes out Halach Lamaisa. Amachlukas, Shlomo and Ramosha, based on this sugya of Chazar and Nislapta, what would be the din if it fell off? So if your blech ever falls off, I can't imagine how a blech could fall off. I mean, I guess it's possible, but like our blech is so big and heavy, and this our mine is. But if that would ever happen, so you have your Shlomo Zalman to be samach on. You can still certainly there's no shiloh at all. You can certainly put a if a metal blech fall off. So you're allowed to do the garf katam on Shabbos if you don't have to affect the fire in any way. So by if you put a metal blech on a gas stove or an electric stove on Shabbos, that's okay to do anyway. Even if you put it on for the first time. Kal v'chomer, if it was on there and fell off, you can put it back on again. That's not an issue. We have to be talking about a case where for some reason you can't do that. It's not gonna either, I don't know, it's too hot. Let's say it's too hot, you can't pick it up, or it broke or whatever. It's not gonna work anymore. It bent or something. So then whether you could do chazara on it will be telling this machlokas or Shlomo Zalman and Rav Moshe.
Couldn't it be a problem of like mivashal by metal?
So Chazal speaks about that. He brings up this point. They done that. It has to be probably a lot hotter than we have our stoves to turn it into like white hot to be washed by metal. Especially if it was already many times on the fire, then putting it on again it might not be hot. There's two things: there's muvashal by metal, and there's makabah patish by it also. It's like that's only the first time you use it, so that's not going to be shaykh over here. By blech, and they do raise this question, but most folks will say that doesn't get hot enough on you're putting out, you're not putting on like the highest flame when you put the blech on. You're putting on a very low flame. You just have to put the blech on really. It's already on a low flame enough to not be a problem with mamish being so hot. So we're just doing this without the hecker. So all the more so, it's not hot enough of a fire to be a child of bishul mateches.
Wait, the issue would be that if the hot plate, whatever, the blech became super hot, then it would be like the coals reigniting. That's the shaila.
Again,
The shaila is that if the blech became Yatz Lettuce Bow, then it would be like Choser V'Nislavsa, or it's a different shaila.
he's asking a different shala of bishul on the metal itself. If you put bishul onto a very, very hot fire on Shabbos, as a shala, it's sort of like it softens the metal somewhat. It's considered bishul by it.
Oh, the metal. Okay, so what about that though? What about the metal? What about if the hot plate, if the blech becomes very Yatz Lettuce Bow? Is that not the same thing as Choser V'Nislavsa?
No,
Nothing's changed.
no. The chazal thoughts is that you is if you would put some kind of cover over the. I mean, the slavta will be the dinion to the slavta will be the blech falling off. So like it was covered and now it's uncovered. That would be like the slavta. So putting the blech on, that's again covering. That's like cutting again. The slavta is when it comes off, not when it comes on.
I'm saying if you have no issue, if you end up in a scenario where there's no difference between the blech and no blech, why doesn't that reverse the katsuma? If the blech becomes so hot that you can cook on it.
No, that's still not the flame being choser, like taking away its hecker or what you did to it.
It's not direct visual, so it's fine. It doesn't matter how hot it gets.
Still cuts it.
Okay, and also, what's the? I don't understand why you can't put the blech back on. Meaning, what's the issue with making a kisa on Shabbos?
Can't no. I said you could. We're talking about a case for some reason you can't. Let's say it got bent, it fell off and got bent up or something, or like.
So you could if you turn your stove on before Shabbos, you can put your blech on after Shabbos. There's no problem.
Yeah.
I thought there's no one that holds otherwise. I thought we saw in the. It could be that I misread it, but I thought we saw people saying that you can't do it. You can't start the process on Shabbos.
Like, couldn't you get to a Safek Deraisa in regards to cooking the metal?
Cooking what? Well,
Like a Safek.
First, I'm gonna answer Dovi's question. You can't start the process on Shabbos if the pot wasn't on the fire before. We're talking about let's say the fire is muvushal kol tzarko. And you want to take up, but there's no blech. You're allowed to leave it without a blech before Shabbos. Even macham under soy. Well, let's say it gets to the point it's totally cooked, but you want to serve some without a blech, and you want to serve some, and then you decide, I thought I'd use it all Friday night, but half the guests didn't show up, so I can really use it tomorrow too. But I want to serve it tonight and put it back on again, but I can't without a blech. I can't do chazara. So theoretically, you could take it off a das to put it back on and put a blech there, then you can put it back on again. So you can't start the whole process on Shabbos. That would be mixed with mavashal, even with the blech. But you could put it back on, or I mean that would be the case. You would do it. You want to keep it on the fire after you used it. So you're allowed to put the blech, or without a blech, you don't have a blech to put on. You could put it in an empty pot on the fire and then put it back on the empty pot.
But what could you not do? You could not, like you're saying, you can't start the whole process. But what, like if it's Malcolm Medusai, then the process is already started, and you can never have a scenario where it wasn't started.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what that case be. What would be a case of starting the process? The case would be if you had a pot that was cooked on before Shabbos, and you just now it's sitting on the counter for Shabbos, and on Shabbos you decide, I want this it's called Sarko, it's still warm and everything. You have those Tanayim, but I want to make it even nice and hot, even hotter for the guests. I thought it would stay hot enough. I see it's cooling down a little bit, so it's still no problem with bishul. It's totally movable and it's still warm, and all. So no problem with all that. But I just wanted to even warmer for the guests. So I'm going to put a blech on because I don't have a blech right now, and put the pot on the blech because there's a fire going for other stuff, or even if there wouldn't be, even if there was a blech all along, and because I have other foods there, but I decided I want to put this pot on that's been sitting off before Shabbos, or I took it off on Shabbos without das to put it back on, and I'm missing one of the Tanayim, so I can't start that process on Shabbos. Maybe I can't decide. I'm putting on the bluff now.
But the reason is next to Kavashal. That's the only reason.
That's good, right?
Yeah. So if you like, if I'm saying if you have like, let's say schnitzel whatever before Shabbos, but you took it out, you cooked it on Thursday, it's in the fridge, whatever, but on Shabbos morning you're gonna put it on the bluff. That's not a problem because it's a chazara from the cooking before Shabbos. You had in mind the whole time.
But that is a problem.
It is a problem.
You can't put it right on the bluff. You have to put it on another pot or an upside down tin or something like that. You have to do a shinui, because otherwise that's a mix of guvashal. Because you don't have the tanoyim of chazara. You don't unless you held your hand on it all night. You didn't go to sleep. You held it in your hands all night. So
That's your advice, is that we should sleep with our schnitzels.
right. So then you're probably putter from all mitzvahs.
Gotcha. Okay.
I have one question, just to clarify. When in this whole Shiloh, we're saying the blech got knocked off, and you want to put the blech back on, or we're saying you should put food back on without the blech?
Put on without a blech. That was all Shiloh.
With
a blech, it's not a problem at all. It's without a blech. We say this like chazar וחזרה, that it's still considered garf katan, even though the kitun became batal through the flame coming back up to as it was before the kitun. So that's the machlokes of Shlomo Zalman or Moshe, that since do you need a zecher of the kitun still to be there to be mutter to put it on, or it's mutter even without a zecher, which the reason will be then like say like Shlomo Zalman, I think would be like we said, that once you did a ma'aseh gilui das, then that's all the Rabbanan required, even though the davar haheker shel gilui das is gone now, but you do the proper gilui das to begin with, like putting the toy between you and your wife and it going away.
Harav, if the heter of if gilui dat is, even when it's the heker is not there anymore, that means that the gilui dat is only for me. It's not for the other people around me. Correct? It's not I do megala my own dat, but it doesn't. Other people don't have to see that I was megala my dat.
Excellent point. Yeah, very good. Yeah, excellent point. Okay. So everything along should be a source for the shvuim, for the tiling, and for all of Israel, and for all of us, and us.
We didn't hear the spooky mice earlier.
I'll just tell you the kitzur. I don't think I ever told this publicly before, but many years ago I was working on it. I was already in Dallas working on a new edition of Yom Tov Sheni, and so there was. My family was in Eretz Yisrael, and I was trying to finish off the final touches to bring it to Eretz Yisrael in the summer to have the new edition published and to Shani. So, but in the meantime, since the first edition came out, and it's mostly based on Shlomo Zalman. In the meantime, the Chelik Beis of Shmir Shabbos Kol Chasa came out, which he has a whole section in Yom Tov Sheni, and he had a number of suckim from Shlomo Zalman that I'd never heard before. So I was incorporating all that into the new edition. Based on that, and after I started working on that, or it was during that time, whatever, that also that Chelik Shlishi came out of Shmir Shabbos, so that was for Shlomo Zalman's own ha'aras. They call it the Tikkunim ba'aras, what we call Chelik Shlishi. Shlomo Zalman, the last 2 years of his life, he spent 2 years with the Charusa, going through the whole Shmir Shabbos Kol Chasa one last time through the whole thing to look at everything in his name, to make sure he agrees with everything still, because he knew it was a safer going out in the Daros and the whole Klal Yisrael. So he wanted to just like the Chazar the whole thing over again and make sure they didn't have anything to change. So he did the last 2 years of his life. He spent the whole morning doing that, and he wrote Hagos as it went along, and so they turned that into a whole chelik. It was all the Ksav Yodo that he wrote that. So we call it chelik shlishi. And the certain things he did, he changed his mind. There's certain things that stayed the same, where he brought more rayas or more lumdus, but sometimes he did actually change his mind on certain points. Anyway, that's the background. So I was sitting early Sunday morning. I was leaving Sud Eretz Yisrael, and I want to finish his last points to incorporate the new psukim from Chelik Beis Shmir Shabbos into Yom Tov Sheni, and I saw a psak in there. I wrote it down, and all of a sudden it occurred to me that if we extrapolate what he says, it'll come out to be a stira in something that I wrote in Yom Tov Sheni in his name. I thought about it, and I couldn't resolve the stira, and I thought, okay, I have to go daven. I'll have to work on this later. I can't. As I got up to go daven, I felt like there was a hand on my shoulder, and like someone whispering in my ears, "Go look at Chelik Shlishi." And I like I don't have time for this. Like, I don't know what that's gonna. And I so I was getting dressed, putting my tzitzis on, and again I felt like a hand on my shoulder saying, "Go look at Chelik Shlishi." And I'm getting goosebumps. I'm like, what is this? And I try to finish getting dressed. I got to finish getting dressed, and then I get a third time, look at Chelik Shlishi. I'll look at Chelik Shlishi. So I open a Chelik Shlishi on that halacha that I just quoted that I thought was a stira. So it says there, I wrote this and this and this, and it was brought in my name, Chelik Sheni, in the Shabbos Gasa. And and based on that, there will be this nafkamina l'gabi Yom Tov Sheni. The afapi shehuva b'shmi b'sefer Yom Tov Sheni kilchaso. Not that way. I thought about it again, and I changed my mind. And I looked up and I saw his picture, smiling. I thought, okay, he's still involved. That was the nicest.
All right.
That should have been in the biographies. I'll contact Art Scroll.
Yeah. All right.
Shkoyach, Rabbi.
Shabbos, everybody.
Good job.
Have a good Shabbos.
I will not be. I'm not gonna put my shits on the block tomorrow, unlike usual. So my first Shabbos, skipping Shabbos, maybe.
Okay. So try to stay up all night holding it.
For the Shabbos project, I'll do it.
That'll be a project. That'll be a Shabbos project.
There we go.
Got it.
Thank you. Have a good Shabbos.